Sport Clips Haircuts and ESPN are teaming up for a Dad's Day getaway. An all-expenses-paid trip to ESPN and a day spent with Golic and Wingo on their show. Register for your chance to win at sportclips.com/ESPN. No purchase necessary. See rules at sportclips.com/ESPN. U.S. only. Age 18 and up and 6/15/18.
LeBron played every single minute. The Cavs win the epic Game 7. And there's a path. There's a chance. There's an opportunity here where I just follow me here. There's a path where LeBron might be able not just to get to the finals, but even steal a championship. It's Golic and Wingo. I'm Jason Fitz in for Trey. Mike Golic Jr. already shaking his head. Didn't even take a minute. I didn't even get a full minute, and you're already shaking your head.
We couldn't even just ease everyone into Memorial Day on this Monday. We couldn't just ease into talking about and reacting to what was an entertaining, even if clunky, Game 7. We've got another Game 7 coming up tonight in the Western Conference, and you're already, forget putting the horse before the cart, you're putting it all the way at the finish line now.
I'm just saying, I'm not saying
the cart before the horse.
Yeah, either way, I wasn't going to correct you. It's early on Memorial Day. I mean, it's fine. We start the party early. So I wasn't going to correct you, Mike, but I'm just saying, I'm not going to cheapen what just happened. I'm just saying that now you have to look at it and say, the bridges are open, the floodgates are going. All of a sudden, there's an opportunity. Just think of it this way. Let's imagine that tonight in the Game 7, there's this sort of Rudy moment for CP3. Chris Paul, injured hamstring, game time decision, comes in, plays lights out, wills his team to the unexpected victory, and all of a sudden the hobbled Rockets go into the finals. You can't tell me LeBron couldn't. I mean, if he could beat the Celtics single-handedly, why can't he beat the Rockets?
See, this is Overreaction Monday radio at its finest right now. LeBron and the Cavs go out and get their Game 7 win in the Eastern Conference. LeBron on his way to an 8th straight NBA Finals, and all you can talk about is forget getting there, forget getting through Game 7. You have already killed the Warriors tonight and then killed the Houston Rockets, who would have beaten the dynastic Warriors in the Western Conference Finals and given the championship back to LeBron James.
No, I'm simply a dreamer, Mike. Like, I'm not saying any of this will happen. I'm just a dreamer. And as a dreamer, I like to look out there and say, hey, you know what? If I'm writing my Disney script for how this eventually goes, LeBron gets the championship in this version, right?
You know what? I think it might be time for me to dole out some advice for you this morning. Yes. Dreamer, wake up for a little bit.
Oh, man. Stay woke. Stay woke. Golic and Wingo, let's get to what's trending. We were just talking about it. LeBron James headed to his 8th straight NBA Finals after an 87-79 win over the Celtics on Sunday night, eliminating Boston from the Eastern Conference Finals in the decisive Game 7.
LeBron James, 35 points, 15 rebounds, 9 assists in the first game, the lowest scoring and the first victory for a road team in this series. James played all 48 minutes and now in his playoff career moves to a perfect 5-0 when playing the entire game. So LeBron James coming into this game, we knew he was going to have to do it all, and he just seems to understand in these closeout situations. We saw it in Game 6 the other night. When he understands when it's on the line, all these talk about rest, all this talk about minutes goes out the window. He knows he is the only chance for this team to keep moving.
100%. LeBron James was in the zone last night. In the zone, brought to you by AutoZone. Get in the zone. AutoZone. It's funny when you mention his stat line, 35, 15, and 9 assists. The 9 assists could have been double that if anybody in the first half could have hit a shot. I mean, at one point they had missed six threes that were on his assists. 5 of them were uncontested. So 5 times they were wide open. Great move by LeBron. And the guys are like, I'm not going to hit that one.
The only thing worse than the Cavs' first half shooting was the Celtics shooting for the entire game.
Gotta respect the resilience, though. They were like, I'm not going to, the shooters got to shoot.
Let me tell you what, Marcus Morris was not going to be denied his moment in the sun.
Man,
I'm going to get us back into this one, guys.
If you were playing NBA 2K and uncomfortable with the shot selection, then the real life version made you very uncomfortable, because the amount of Marcus Smart and Terry Rozier, we were talking about it earlier. Rozier at one point, I think, had missed everything, and he drives in, and instead of taking the easy layup, he's like, you know what? I'd rather dribble back and see what I can do with the guy in my face from 3.
And we'll get into this more in just a little bit with this, but it was amazing the different versions of the Celtics that showed up last night in a segment setting where they had been so comfortable, almost as comfortable as any team in history during the postseason so far.
First postseason loss that they've suffered all year. So well
at
done.
Home.
At home, sorry. So good correction there, Mike. In Game 7 Magic for tonight, the Rockets return home for today. Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals, 8 o'clock Eastern on ESPN Radio against the defending champion Golden State Warriors.
We've heard about every different injury label for Chris Paul at this point, and right now it sounds like it's going to be a game-time decision. They'll continue to reevaluate him all the way up until tip-off and see if that hamstring is willing to hold, but a lot of this seems tied to them. I've seen our basketball power index here as the Rockets favored, but you know that Chris Paul's presence on the court is going to skew that, and even if he's there, we understand no one's at 100%, but fresh off an injury like that, and one that a hamstring, as any athlete will tell you, there's no real medicine for other than time. We saw Jaylen Brown deal with this earlier in the playoffs for the Celtics, and it's just really difficult on short notice to think he's going to be the full version of himself that was so helpful to them in Game 6.
Interesting to me, I was listening to ESPN Radio yesterday afternoon, and they were saying, no way Chris Paul doesn't play. And then I watched last night our coverage, and Jalen Rose was like, no way Chris Paul plays. So we just don't have any idea at this point. But this year, 15-10 is the Rockets' record, 15-10 without Chris Paul, which is not nearly as good as they usually do, obviously. So you have to look at it and say it's everything in this series. That being said, when you go back to Game 6, I mean, I thought Game 6 was going to be handed to the Rockets. I thought the Rockets were going to get handed to them from the get-go, right? And instead, they came out strong, and then they just fell apart.
Yep, and then the third quarter Warriors continued to be a thing, and it was all downhill from there. So
it is amazing. The third quarter Warriors has become this phenomenon that everybody knows about, and no one knows how to stop.
Well, because when it's the one quarter, it seems like where this team puts it all together. So we'll see if they can do it again tonight.
Yeah, well, if the Warriors do it again tonight, Warriors Cavs 4. Still possible. Never before have there been 4 straight meetings between the same two teams in a championship round in the NBA, Major League Baseball, NHL, or NFL history.
How about this? We think of LeBron James and his streak in the finals now, 8 straight appearances in the NBA Finals. The Warriors would be seeking their 10th finals appearance overall, which would break a tie for the Sixers for third most in the NBA history. They would trail only the Lakers and the Celtics, who grossly outpaced this group. 31 appearances by the Lakers, 21 by the Celtics, but the Warriors going for a little bit of franchise history in the process.
It feels like, as much as I want to find my Disney movie magic, it feels like this is the Warriors' opportunity to lose. You mentioned our indexes, but Vegas right now has the Warriors a favorite on the road in Game 7. That's a statement of Chris Paul's injury.
It absolutely shows you how big of an effect. We saw in we've seen in this series the way injury can sway it. You had Chris Paul going out the other night. You had Andre Iguodala coming back, and just the effect that whole shift had on this series is certainly going to be felt in a big way.
I can't wait to watch it. Game 7 in the NBA is just Game 7 in the playoffs in general. It doesn't matter which sport. Game 7 I love.
Best 2 words in sports. Well, Game 7.
And you're making fun of me for being radio guy this morning. Also, yesterday, a little baseball action.
Come on.
It's gone. It's gone. The little thingy's gone now. I don't know what happened.
You deleted it.
So I'll just go bang, gang, gang. We'll just keep going. Sunday was supposed to be the best, be the day. See, now I'm all, now wait, they brought it back.
Do you want a breather?
It's gone.
There you go.
I'm pressing the button. I don't know what I'm doing.
Someone's got a foot in the parking lot this morning already. What time's the barbecue?
Sunday was supposed to be the day 2 of Japan's best pitching talent squared off at Yankee Stadium, but thanks to the Los Angeles Angels' desire to better negotiate the workload management of their multi-position rookie superstar Shohei Ohtani, that did not happen.
You're supposed to play the song. We have a song around here for Shohei Ohtani.
It says Shohei drop, but I thought they did that. I don't know where it is.
Man.
Nobody told me that.
It's our favorite song around here.
Well, I'll look around and see if I can find it on this. There's so many. While you keep talking, I'll see if I can just find.
There you go. I give it to you guys. Anyway, Shohei Ohtani. There we go. God.
To Shohei the way.
Anyway. Shohei Ohtani 0 for 2 as the Yankees win 3-1 against going up against Masahiro Tanaka, who when they both played in Japan in 2013, Ohtani may have found his kryptonite here, a guy who's been the story of the young Major League Baseball season. 0 for 11 with 6 strikeouts and a walk against Tanaka when they were both players in Japan. So anyone looking in the deep dive in that matchup saw clearly this wasn't one that was going to favor Ohtani. And speaking of that win for the Yankees, they got a big one coming up today. Yankees-Astros.
It's going to be spectacular on ESPN Radio.
Yep, on ESPN Radio later today. The Astros, the best pitching outfit in Major League Baseball right now, going up against all those Yankee hitters. What more could you want during the cookout? It's
fantastic during the cookout or during the barbecue. However you want to do it. Either way. We're going to try this again, but God knows where it's going to go. The best name ever. Will Power is the winner of the 102nd running of the Indy 500.
I like Will Power's quote after the game. Doesn't remember the moments following the race. He goes, I must have screamed a lot. I didn't realize everyone is talking about screaming. So really relishing that moment, chugging milk, and a great moment for him, a guy who had won 31 IndyCar races, 45 poles in a 10-plus year career. But we know the magic, the greatest spectacle in racing there at Indy, and managed to go out and get it. So we'll have a chance to talk to Will Power later on in this show at 7:45. So be able to check in, ask him how the milk tastes.
7:45 a.m. Eastern, and that gets you caught up on what's trending. Mike, where are you on chugging milk as a general topic?
I'm all in on that. So my brother introduced me to something called coffee milk, apparently, which my penchant for caffeinated beverages already put me on high alert when that got brought up, but it lives up to the hype. So big milk chugger.
Coffee milk. I went unsweetened almond milk yesterday on the fantastic diet plan that I'm on. That's not tasty.
No, you can't chug almond milk. Almond milk is good in other things. If you've got to like cut coffee, maybe you put a little in there. You can use it in cereal if you're a little dairy. That's actually Will Power mentioned he's not supposed to eat dairy, so he was a little gun shy on the milk. But all things considered, don't chug almond milk. Stick to regular milk for that. Use it in the right spots. Drink responsibly.
Look at that. Such spectacular advice. It's Golic and Wingo, presented by Progressive Insurance. We got a great guest list today. You mentioned Will Power at 7:45. Brian Windhorst going to join us. Wendy at 8:10. Mark Kestecher at 9:05. All phone guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. And if you miss any of them, you can listen to all 4 hours on demand in the ESPN app. I'm Jason Fitz in for Trey. Mike Golic Jr. in for Mike Golic. And so, just let's go back to this. I'm not.
Yeah. All right. So walk everyone through your scenario.
I'm not saying this is an inevitability or this is going to happen. I'm just going to say, in the world of, so you're telling me there's a chance. If you think about it this way, sports always give us these great gifts of like movie endings, right? So I could see a movie ending where Chris Paul comes back tonight, game time decision, bum hamstring. Comes back tonight, has his big, like, Rudy moment. You know, he has his big, like, sports movie moment, wills them to a victory. But in the process, maybe he's not 100%. Maybe he's not even 10% going into the finals. All of a sudden, you have the Rockets going into the finals, limping into the finals, no pun intended, against the Cavs and LeBron, who just single-handedly beat the Celtics. If he can single-handedly beat the Celtics, well, I don't think they stand a chance against the Warriors, a depleted Rockets team. They could beat. So there is a path here where I'm looking at it and saying, you know what? Interesting. It might not be the easiest path. It's maybe not the way that Waze would take me on the GPS, but I can see a path that gets from right where we are to LeBron hoisting a championship.
Everyone else basking in what was, at the very least, a final Game 7 in the Eastern Conference Series that was close for a while down the stretch. Had some lead changes. I enjoyed hearing the stats. Basically, every quarter that we went through with a lead change was the first time we had a lead change in that quarter in this series. That's how lopsided the games had been, and we finally had it close, and you want to go down this road. Forgetting all of the ripple effects, the stone that you have tossed in the water right now has a lot of ripple effects because Chris Paul goes out and does that. All of a sudden, we're looking and asking a lot of questions about James Harden. You couldn't be the guy to lift your team over in this moment. You are casting off the Warriors, who after a season of looking apathetic at almost every turn would now have to answer very real questions about their mortality in a basketball sense. What's the future hold for that team? So you're playing pretty fast and loose with a lot of weighty constructs in the NBA. Friend.
Don't be Twitter guy here. I'm just saying there is a way. I'm not saying it is the way. There is a way, and it at least opens up. Look, I'm a romantic, right? I'm a lover, right? You go on a couple of dates, and suddenly you're like, hey, I'm really into it. Like, that's where I am. Like, you're busy on the side.
But you're going on hypothetical dates with the Rockets and the Cavs in your brain right now.
Well, no, I've been on like 3 dates and I'm just ready to settle down. Like that's where I am. I'm looking at the future, Mike.
Well, I think if you weigh the possibilities, it's certainly the most interesting to me at this point. And I said going into this postseason, the best version for the NBA would be to have one of the teams, either the Cavs or the Warriors, in the NBA Finals, because there's still star power in those matchups. You've got 4 Hall of Famers on the Warriors team. You've got LeBron James on the Cavaliers team. You want the best players on the court for the NBA Finals during the biggest, best version of your product. So you want one of those as a carryover for what we've seen the last 3 times. But introducing some new blood into it wouldn't have been the worst thing. And for the NBA, if you could draw it up and say, we could have the guy that's going to be the presumptive MVP of the league this year in James Harden in the NBA Finals against the guy we want to give the award to every year who has been on this mountaintop for 8 straight years now, that's probably how they would draw it up if they had an honest moment, because it also introduces what I mentioned kind of jokingly before, this idea that you've got a little more human Golden State Warriors team than we had seen in recent years.
So that begs an interesting question, because I've been squarely on, from a basketball fan standpoint, God, I'd love to see anything else. But from a marketing and NBA mind, I would think that the league would look at it and say, Golden State, Cleveland 4, yeah, give it to me all day. I understand what you're saying, that bringing in some new blood, getting some more sort of love to Harden and to CP3 in a final series would be interesting, and that would be good for the league maybe long term. What's best is to create some sort of rivalries that work, right? That's why we're desperate. I mean, we are desperate in the East to figure out how the 76ers are going to become great, and we're desperate in the East right now, today, instead of just looking at it and saying, man, hell of a run by the Celtics. We're desperate to look at it and say, but wait, the Celtics are going to get 2 huge pieces back. They're going to be an epic team too, because what we really want to create on each side is some sort of rivalry each way, right? I understand that. Warriors still are going to give you more star power, though. If I'm the NBA, I want Warriors Cavs all day.
I guess I just look at what the motivations are at this point, and you've got a Rockets team that clearly has come into this series happy and content to be the bully. They've come in. This is for anyone that doesn't get this reference, I apologize. Go do your homework. This is Rocky. This is Rocky. Was it Rocky 3 when he goes up against Clubber Lang? Right? Yeah.
I love that all of you are nodding, and yeah, I'm like, was that the one with Dolph Lundgren in it?
No, it's the one with Mr. T in it.
Mr. T, yeah, keep it to the actors, Mike.
But he's got all of the hunger of that situation. He's got that fire that Rocky used to bring to the table, and this is what the Houston Rockets are to Golden State. This is what they've been in this series now. You could say Golden State's still the infinitely more talented team, and in the third quarter, we see that manifest itself pretty often. But the Rockets have managed to somehow drag the Warriors into playing their style of basketball, and the interesting thing becomes now, as we look towards this, what we saw from the Cleveland Cavaliers to beat the Celtics ended up being a lot of LeBron James isolation and then making plays off that, more or less. That was what it would be back and forth both ways if the Houston Rockets and the Cavaliers play. So not to look too far ahead, because the game last night was great, and there are a lot of things that we can get to, questions on the Celtics side for what went on with them in this game. But matchup-wise, I can understand the intrigue with potential Rockets and Cavs, because styles make fights, and those two styles seem to marry up pretty well.
You're listening to Golic and Wingo. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. Commercial insurance through Progressive protects your business and your dream. Choose from over 30 coverage options at progressivecommercial.com. I'm Jason Fitz in for Trey Jr. in for Mike Golic. Let's get into a little of that game last night and what you just said. You know, there's a conversation to be had about the way that game looked, because absolutely the Cavs strategy was get the ball in LeBron's hands and let's just see what happens. In the first half, he was absolutely trying to create, and we mentioned it earlier with this stat line. He hit a lot of open guys. They didn't hit their looks. In the second half, they did hit their looks. But at the end of the game particularly, it felt like LeBron and the Cavs got this surge in belief and confidence, and the Celtics, the moment felt like it was too big for them. Like, it felt like in the last 3 or 4 minutes, they were incapable of running any sort of an offense that wasn't get it to somebody and chuck up a 3. Even down 4, 5, 6 points, when you've got the TV team coming in and reminding you, hey, there's 2.5 minutes left in this game. There's plenty of time down by 5. And the Celtics offense at that point was pitch up a desperate three. It looked like the game got bigger than them at the end.
I enjoyed hearing from, all of our NBA analysts, Chauncey and Paul Pierce, before Game 7, talking about their experiences in this moment and how it is just different. You can't really mimic the intensity of a Game 7 of this magnitude without having experienced it. And you saw the difference for these two teams. The difference between having a player like LeBron James, and Mark Jackson actually talked about this in the broadcast, being able to play with incredible players, all-time greats, because all the pressure is on them. So this Cavaliers team walked into a setting where a lot of these guys had already been, and they had the luxury of being able to look out and say, we've got Game 7 LeBron James. All right, I can relax now and just do my job, because in this setting especially, I understand what an advantage he gives us. Going out there and being able to point to another guy on your team, because everyone understands who the guy is, and in Cleveland, nowhere it's clearer than that team in that situation. They can look out there and say, we've got that guy, and relax. The Celtics, Jason Tatum has become that guy for them on this team. We saw that ascension last night when he decided to put LeBron James on a poster and give him some chatter. You saw the chatter after that really set everyone off, but that team still didn't have a guy that in that moment they had the same confidence in. Just born through experience. You can think that about somebody, but until you've seen it over and over again, it doesn't quite feel the same.
You mentioned Jason Tatum. He's not going to be a star. He is a star. And there was an ascension period for him last night that's going to be interesting to keep an eye on. Tons of talk about the East, but we obviously want to get into the West. We got a lot to get to there, obviously. There's never been 4 straight meetings between the same two teams in a championship round in any sport.
Every deck is made for standing on, but there's only one that's always had a way of standing out. So if you're looking to bring more style, comfort, and creativity to your life outdoors, call on the brand that's known for making the most in outdoor living. From decking, railing, and lighting to furniture, fencing, and framing, at Trex, we're engineering what's next in outdoor living. To learn more about all of the outdoor solutions Trex has to offer, call 1-800-289-TREX or visit Trex.com. That's TREX.com.
Love scoring amazing hotel deals? Then you've got to get the Hotel Tonight app. Forget scrolling through never-ending lists of hotels. Hotel Tonight shows you a select list of incredible deals at hotels you actually want to stay at. And even though the name's Hotel Tonight, you can book up to 100 days in advance in top destinations and up to a week in advance everywhere else. Want to get those deals? Yeah, you do. Download the Hotel Tonight app now.
The only thing better than 1 Game 7 is 2 Game 7s back-to-back nights. Good Lord, the basketball gods have shined down on us and said, congratulations. Tonight, for the first time since 1979, both conference finals going 7 games. Tonight, the West gets their turn to get all of our attention. It's Golic and Wingo. I'm Jason Fitz in for Trey, Jr. in for Mike. And it's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. Mike, it's funny because last night's game, which we just talked about so much in the East, sort of personified some of what the East has looked like throughout the course of the year. It was kind of ugly. It was close. It was packed in, but eventually there was a winner. I don't feel like that's going to be the case tonight. There's this sort of this magic to the Western Conference. I will admit they're just flat out better. And so when you think Golden State and you think Houston, I just think this game's going to be spectacular.
The series has just given us so much across the board that I'm not sure what we'll get. We had Game 1 where the score ended up being lopsided towards the end, but that first half ended in a dead tie where the complete opposite of the shooting performance of last night, no one could miss in the opening game of the Western Conference Finals. And then since then, it's been a lot of blowouts. This stat will tell you everything you need to know about what's coming up in the game tonight. The Rockets have lost a pair of games in this series by at least 25 points, including the last game in Game 6. Only 5 other teams in NBA history have won a series that featured a pair of 25-point losses. You know who the last team to do it was? The 2015 Houston Rockets when they beat the Clippers in the Western Conference. So this is a team that's sort of been used to this, but this has been the boom or bust of the last couple of postseasons in the NBA, so it's very emblematic of where we are.
So I've gone on record many times on Spain and Fitz, which you can listen to Monday through Friday, 6 to 9 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio, saying that whilst, when we finally got a close game in this series a few games ago, said a close game wasn't necessarily a great game. It was sort of a sloppy game. There's been some sloppy basketball at times in this series. I think the reason I have so much hope for tonight is that at least in our minds, when we take all of the stereotypes we have of what a Game 7 means, we expect those stereotypes to play out. And they did a little bit last night. LeBron was LeBron, and maybe the youth of the Celtics showed up a little bit. Some of the things that you stereotype show up. Well, when you think about the Rockets and the Warriors particularly, and you think about both of them playing at their best, that's amazing. And that's what I think you have to presume we'll get tonight, some version of the best. The only thing that stinks is that whatever we get from Chris Paul, so much is going to be made over the course of the next 14 hours today about whether or not at every cookout or barbecue you're at, it's going to be is Chris Paul going to play? Is Chris Paul going to play? And the real answer to that is, even if he does play, he's not going to be Chris Paul. So the Rockets are going to have to come in with an effective strategy that allows them to win this game. And frankly, James Harden's going to have to prove he's the MVP.
Yeah, and that's what I think most people are going to circle on is, all right, we've got a guy who we've already given this award to for a while now, and so far through the playoff run, he's had instances of being great, but it hasn't felt the same as watching the takeover that we've seen in the Eastern Conference at times. It hasn't even felt the same in certain instances. Some guys from the Warriors that we've seen, now we've seen multiple. We saw the Klay Thompson Game 6 where he reminded us all that he was born for this. We've seen Kevin Durant clearly cement himself as kind of their version of LeBron at times. When this offense has devolved into one-on-one basketball, it's been through KD. But on the Rockets side, we're still waiting to kind of see James Harden do it in that moment, because that's what we all want in these postseasons, is for guys that we consider great players in almost every other realm to start building up their resume in this portion of the season. And James Harden, who has been prolific scoring the ball, but it hasn't, we all want the best players to be the best leaders, to be the go-to guys in these moments. And we're starting to wonder now, is James Harden going to be a guy that really gives us that?
And that's what I'm excited to see tonight. That's Straight Talk, Straight Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. When you talk about Harden and the expectations for him, I will always look just on the other side of the court tonight. If the shoe is on the other foot, if Steph Curry had been hobbled and Steph Curry was out and this was a Game 7, today would be all about what's the legacy of Kevin Durant, because we don't want to cut Kevin Durant any slack for any reason at any point, because people have made up their mind that they don't like him. So for whatever reason, the way we judge Kevin Durant, it would be held up over here, and his entire legacy would depend on how he plays in the Game 7. I'm not willing to be less than that on Harden. I think that there has to be some memory of how poorly he played last year when he needed it the most, when his team needed him the most, and he forgot how to basketball. And so he has a terrible game, the Rockets get eliminated. There has to be some proof of concept for Harden. He has to step up at some point if he is going to be the guy that we all think he is. He has to have not just a night, but an epic night to me to justify sort of what we've put behind him as a player, as an MVP, and as a brand.
Yeah, it seems misguided, but it's what we do. We look at these moments for guys that we've elevated to this next status, and when you become an MVP of the league, you become part of this next level conversation. It's what happened. You watch the expectations move. Look at Russell Westbrook this season. Went out and had arguably a better year than he did during his MVP season, but because we have changed the bar now on what success is, it's gone from, all right, this individual accolade was cool, but we want to see you drag your team to some place that they shouldn't be, a la what we're getting in the Eastern Conference. And if you can't do that for us, we're automatically going to look at you kind of side-eyed.
Yeah, I mean, didn't even make the All-NBA team. I mean, that's where we went. We went from averaging a triple-double for a season as MVP worthy to, I mean, not
looks good in the second team.
It's good. Second team All-NBA is fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's Golic and Wingo. I'm Jason Fitz in for Trey, Jr. in for Mike. We'll get back to the Western Conference in a second, but it is Memorial Day, Mike. So I have to ask you,
oh boy,
if you have any weird, like, is anything weird going down for the Golics? Like, is there something that you're going to bring to a cookout or barbecue?
No. Well, and so we've got a couple of different things that we have to address this morning in that realm, because cookout or barbecue is something that I think is culturally different depending on which side of the fence you fall on, and what you can and can't bring to said barbecue or said cookout, because I have been hearing a lot about one particular side dish and the things that certain people do with that side dish. And I want to find out how true this is, if we have taken a stereotype and run too far with it, or if there's validity. So we've got to get to the bottom of this over the course of the next 3 hours.
Okay, we'll do that when we come back. Also, coming up, some contract talks between the Steelers and Le'Veon Bell have entered a very uncomfortable new realm.
To give batters a different look, pitchers throw a changeup.
Your idea of a different look is sunglasses.
That's true. But La Quinta Inns and Suites is really taking the different look thing to a new level.
Definitely a major league makeover, starting with a bolder, brighter lobby full of comfortable spaces to let you settle in.
Or chill out in front of a big flat screen like Wingo would.
Oh, you know it. It's a changing La Quinta look to help you get in the zone and look sharp when you hit that big meeting.
Prepare to win at business with La Quinta Inns and Suites.
Book now at LQ.com.
It's Golic and Wingo. I'm Jason Fitz sitting in for Trey.
With SportsCenter, brought to you by DXL. Hey guys, if you're built like a linebacker or a lineman or a power forward, finding clothes that fit has never been easy until DXL. DXL was built just for XL guys with over 100 brands and an unrivaled fit starting at size XL. Get to your nearby DXL store. Visit DestinationXL.com. Built to fit, built XL, DXL.
Great job, Mike.
That one hits close to home. DXL has bailed your boy out of more than a few situations. You ever have to buy a belt as a 300-plus pounder on short notice? If you don't have a DXL, you just get a lot of sad looks from people in the department store, like there's nothing here for you, Tubby.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I feel your pain.
No, you don't.
Well, you're right. I don't. I'm sorry. No,
don't you lie to me.
I was trying to sympathize with you. You guys can hit us on Twitter because this is about to get heated, at Golic and Wingo. The track you just heard, by the way, we're going to get to in just a second because it's terrible shade. It's awful, but we'll explain. Before we get there though, we have been near brawling, during the breaks because there's a conversation we want you guys to chime into on Twitter about the best sides to bring to a Memorial Day cookout or barbecue.
Yeah, everyone's getting ready for their gathering today with family and friends, and whether you call it a barbecue or a cookout, you're usually tasked with bringing some sort of side dish as a guest going to the cookout. If you're a host, it's a whole different batch of worms, but for this, the guest, a side dish, it's a tremendous responsibility and one that we take pretty seriously, but it sparked a debate over what a true side dish is.
Yeah, mac and cheese is not a side dish. Mac and cheese is a main dish. Like you sit down, I sit down when I'm fatty boom boom and I'm like, I want to have myself a big old meal. I sit down with a family style box, blue box, family style, size box of mac and cheese, the regular traditional, and I dump that out and I eat it in its entirety. All right. So that's a meal. That's not a side.
I get it. As a full boxer myself, when it comes to cereal or mac and cheese, the old Chef Boyardee ravioli family cans, yeah. I'm all in on the one box challenge. My problem is you're taking context out of all of this because mac and cheese can be a main dish in the right setting. But in this setting, in a cookout where meat is the primary, whether it's a cookout or barbecue, meat is at the center of this universe. And so mac and cheese has to turn into one of the planets orbiting around that. And I don't think that's a slight to mac and cheese. It's just the reality.
No, the side dishes at a Memorial Day cookout, I mean, those cookouts in general are held outside. Mac and cheese should not be served cold. You don't serve mac and cheese cold, so what are you going to keep it warm? You keep it.
You're not serving it cold,
right? I know, but then you're putting like a hot dish out on a hot no. What are the other sides? Baked beans, not hot, right?
What do you mean baked beans not hot?
South. You buy them in the refrigerator section.
Where are you?
You buy them in the refrigerator section.
This is why your takes are so warped. What cookouts have you been going to?
Potato salad, not hot. Macaroni salad, gross, but not hot.
Just tell me this, because this is what I really want to get to. You don't put raisins in your potato salad, right?
No. Who does? Do people do that?
I don't. Like, this is one of those things that gets thrown at white people. Apparently, white people have ruined potato salad. It's my favorite current meme that's going around is this idea that white people have this untrustworthy potato salad that gets brought to cookouts by someone named Karen. And I've been trying to ask people over the last couple of days, source the world around me, which is in large part white in certain instances. And I can't track down anyone who's actually done this. So at Golic and Wingo on the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed, do you put raisins in your potato salad? Because I don't know if this is a thing that we actually do.
I don't think we do. And raisins don't belong in anything, really.
Yeah.
Especially not cookies, because then you're a total fraud. Like, you're making me think it's chocolate chip. And instead, I go to eat it, and it's got a raisin in it instead of a chocolate chip.
You've got a raisin diss track in your future, don't you?
Yeah, see, that's because I'm angry, so I just make up I spit my flow, as the kids say. And that's what Le'Veon Bell has decided to do. Le'Veon Bell has decided to throw some shade at the Steelers with his new track. And sometimes you hear it where it's like, okay, like the subtweeting principle where they're getting to it, but they're not really getting to it. No, Le'Veon flat out wrote a terrible, terrible, terrible rap that is on an awful track. But the whole thing is about how he's underpaid and undervalued, and people think that he's not training hard or that he's failed drug tests.
Yeah, no, this wasn't just like one or two shots amidst the song. This seems to have all of the tenets of a full-on diss track. Le'Veon Bell, who's franchise tagged by the Steelers yet again, you can hear right here. Ooh.
This is so bad.
As a former musician yourself, I understand you have a lot of real criticisms of the track itself. I don't think the production value is overly high on this.
Well, and that's the biggest, I'm going to critique this for that because, I've got buddies that I've worked with in the past that have built beats for Kanye. Those guys are hireable by anybody. If you can write the check, they will they'll create your track. Which is why the Ball family stuff actually the tracks on it sounded okay because they went out and hired track builders.
Yeah, all things considered, very quality sounding.
It takes a lot of zeros, but last time I checked, even on the franchise tag, Le'Veon, you can afford a better track. That feels like you bought an app, dude. You bought I'm going to rap on it app. It's terrible.
But we're going to come up with a more creative app name for you. But yeah, $14.5 million later on this franchise tag, you think you could get better, but the content of it, and it's interesting because this public back and forth with the Steelers has been well documented. I've seen Le'Veon Bell on his he's gone through the proper millennial channels to voice his frustration. He's been on his Instagram Live, all these different places. And this has been, I think, the most pointed criticism yet. A lot of talk about, the characterization of him coming off of last year when he sat out through training camp. If I don't do what you want, then you want me gone. I must say you being real aggressive, the way you switch up on me, real impressive. You can see I'm doing shows, so you think I'm out of shape. All these people want to trade. I'm the one they want to hate. So to me, I'm a target. Target the name of the song. But this idea that he has become, like he said before, somehow an enemy in Pittsburgh. Somehow he's the bad guy because he wants to be paid what he believes he's valued.
You're listening to Golic and Wingo, presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Jason Fitz in for Trey, Jr. in for Mike. And if that is the case, you feel like a target? Do you think this is the way to win the city back? I mean, there's some element of what's your end game here? I'm going to put this out so that I can get my hurt out to the world. For what?
Honestly, poor timing too, considering Drake actually just released a pretty decent diss track and that whole Pusha T drama. Now to come with this after the fact, you think if I sat out, I'd be sluggish. You think they won't pay me because I failed a drug test. Fun fact, I ain't never failed one. That's on me. So you worried about the weed. What about those PEDs? Is he ratting on himself for PED use now? I'm not really sure how that one plays.
Yeah.
By the way.
I have no idea. By the way, mac and cheese, somebody says, not a main dish. You show up at a dinner party, ask the host what's for dinner. They're not saying mac and cheese unless they're 7 years old or unless they're one of my friends. If I ask my friends, hey, I'm coming over, what do you got? And they're like, mac and cheese, I'm just going to stay. I'm having that.
By the way to pick the sample that helps and that helps you out. You are getting crushed right now on Twitter for your mac and cheese take. So welcome to the Thunderdome.
You know what? Last time I checked, Twitter's not a place for any reasonable thought. Coming up, LeBron headed to his 8th straight NBA Finals, but I'm pretty sure the path is set for him to steal another championship.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I feel like a whole new person.
Disclaimer, you will not become a whole new person. This is impossible. You might be able to join a gym or diet program, buy a new wardrobe, get hair implants, but your DNA and physical form will remain the same. Geico waives any and all liability if you attempt to become a new person, except a cyborg. If you choose to become a half-human, half-cybernetic organism with lasers for eyes, the Geico legal team would be cool with that, because, quote, laser eyes are pretty sweet. Pew, 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 end quote.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Sport Clips Haircuts and ESPN are teaming up for a Dad's Day getaway. An all-expenses-paid trip to ESPN and a day spent with Golic and Wingo on their show. Register for your chance to win at sportclips.com/ESPN. No purchase necessary. See rules at sportclips.com/ESPN. U.S. only. Age 18 and up and 6/15/18.
You just heard Van Gundy say he'll never have a greater achievement than taking this team to the finals. But what if?
Oh, boy.
What if there's a way he can win it all?
This game ended less than 12 hours ago, and we're already here.
But my joy and excitement for what's next never ends. It's Golic and Wingo. Jason Fitz sitting in for Trey, Jr. in for Mike. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. If you miss any of them, you can listen to all 4 hours on demand in the ESPN app. I get it. I have to look at last night. And I think for me, part of it is because at the All-Star break, we were all vacillating back and forth so much about whether or not the Cavs were going to be any good. And so I went in on Spain and Fitz, which you can hear Monday through Friday, 6 to 9 p.m. Eastern. I went in and said, fine, I'm going to draw a line in the sand. The Cavs aren't going to the finals. At some point we had to look at the eye test post-trade, and it just didn't look good. So I said the Cavs aren't going to the finals. And even throughout the course of the playoffs, there's been a couple of times that I've thought, you know what? They're done. They're not going to get around this. And every time I've been proven wrong. So now I've been proven wrong I've been kicked in the no-no places by the doubt of LeBron so many times this year that now I'm all in. I'm just looking at it saying, why not at this point? LeBron has done everything I said he can't do. So why not a championship if he gets a hobbled Rockets team? If somehow, some way, if the bird flu hits all of the Warriors and the Rockets win tonight's game 7, so you're telling me there's a chance?
I tell you what's interesting about all this, lost in the midst of you already just wandering down the road that is interesting and one that I've wandered privately on in a moment, but wanted to give a little bit room to breathe. You talk about, though, this idea of doubting and learning to trust LeBron James. Oh, the irony that this offseason, LeBron and the Cavs beat the Celtics last night. Kyrie Irving, by the way, did we ever get a ruling on where he was last night? Because not on the bench for Game 7 in a way that he had been for games prior. Gordon Hayward was on the bench last night. Never really got an answer, and I always hold out just in case, there was some sort of family matter he needed to attend to. Certainly interesting, but Kyrie Irving leaves in the offseason to go and prove that he can be the man on a different team without LeBron, and in the process ends up reproving what we already knew, which is that LeBron James is really the only thing you need on your team.
God, that is such a good point, and it should be a reminder to the Celtics, for whatever reason that Kyrie wasn't there. The weird part of it to me is they should have addressed it. They knew we'd all be paying attention. I'm surprised the Celtics didn't say, hey, Kyrie's got something, personal issue, can't be there tonight. Something, instead of just staying silent on it. I thought staying dark on it seemed curious.
Because as we'll get to, a team that was playing in a Game 7, a young team playing in a Game 7, having any voice in that situation that's been over the mountaintop the way Kyrie has would have probably been a valuable tool on the sideline.
Let's get to what's trending. We're talking about it now. LeBron headed to his 8th straight NBA Finals after an 87-79 win over the Celtics on Sunday night, eliminating Boston from the Eastern Conference Finals in the decisive 7th game.
LeBron James, 35 points, 15 rebounds, 9 assists. Could have been about double that in the assist column if the Cavs had cashed in anything close to a normal shooting percentage in the first half. But, man, LeBron James last night, the ultimate proof that when you get to this level, professional basketball, the best athletes in the world, sometimes you're the bear and sometimes the bear gets you. Because on one end, you have the unbelievable block of, Terry Rozier going up to try and send one over LeBron, and he goes up for a block that rattled the Twitterverse, and then not 10, 15 minutes later, Jason Tatum comes down and absolutely bridges the generational divide with a dunk heard around the world there. So you can get both in one game, but at the end of the day, LeBron also gets the dub.
You mentioned Terry Rozier. He had a night to forget. I hate that for somebody that has had some sparkling moments in the playoffs. This is the one that's going to stick with him, right? Like in the middle of August, he's going to be thinking about that game. It was particularly wretched for him last night.
Guy got a t-shirt and a nickname out of this playoff run, and last night got shown the exit. It was just rough all around for the Celtics, who seemed to go back and forth between the team that we had seen run these really competent offensive sets, work through Al Horford on the block, get a lot of good open looks, and a team that just started to chuck up a lot of desperation threes before desperation was really needed.
Yeah, that was the curious part of it to me. I think there's a moment that the Celtics will look back on this game at some point when they watch it and realize that the moment just got too big for them. And I know that sounds cheesy, but that's the only way you can explain what happened in the last 3 minutes. Shot selection particularly was just horrid for the Celtics down the stretch. And that's the moment that really, really finished this game. I'm not taking anything away from LeBron's ability to win this, but this definitely felt like the Celtics didn't give themselves the best chance to actually win the game. From one Game 7 to another, the Houston Rockets return home today. Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals, which you can hear 8 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio against the defending champion Golden State Warriors.
Chris Paul is going to be the big story of the night. His hamstring and injury status going to be decided at tip-off. He'll be reevaluated today as time goes on, and they'll find out if they'll have one of their most important players, a guy who really helped close out, Game 5, he ended on that tear for them, and has been a huge, valuable part to their winning and combined with great performances from James Harden this season. I think when they score 25 plus each, they're 8-0 on the year. So they're going to need those kind of performances if they can get a healthy Chris Paul on the court.
Well, and there's going to have to be some moment of Harden that plays lights out, plays just out of his mind. We're going to have to see something from the MVP that is sort of documentary worthy, because that's sort of the expectation at this point. Game 7 of the Western Conference is what everybody's talking about. What everybody's talking about, brought to you by Lowe's. Pros in the know, start with Lowe's. Go to lowesforpros.com for details. Giving Hockey Guy a little bit of love. This year's Stanley Cup Final features 2 franchises seeking their first championship. One team no one thought would win anything significant this year, and another team with many doubters of its own.
The Vegas Golden Knights a year ago this time had nothing. They had no coach, they had no team, and now they've got an appearance in the Stanley Cup Final. And on the other side, we look at the Capitals, who have been a walking, living, breathing meme for the entire Ovechkin era so far, a team that's been knocking on the doorstep, and a lot like their basketball counterpart in the Houston Rockets, got to the conference finals, have survived a Game 7 themselves with one of the best players on the planet, and now get to test their mettle. So a lot of compelling storylines that I know you have just a bit of a beef with where we've put the story now in the relative sports universe.
I mean, come on, guys. The NHL had to be smarter than this. To start the Stanley Cup Final when they knew that there was a potential for a Game 7 tonight just seems ignorant to the process of attention, right? There's only so much attention to be spent. The Vegas Golden Knights, an expansion team, having the opportunity to win a championship is a spectacular story for hockey. And it's a great moment for the NHL to bury Game 1 in Vegas, to bury that against a Game 7 in the NBA makes no sense. I know that scheduling's difficult. I know that you have to move some things around. I looked far enough out to see that, it could have impacted a Hall & Oates concert in D.C. I get that. But some things you move if you want anyone to actually pay attention to it. Unfortunately for Hockey Guy, this one's going to get buried tonight.
Yeah, one of those things you don't move is Hall and or Oates. You leave them well enough alone.
Oh, man. Let me ask you this. Washington and the city, the D.C. area, likes to call itself the most cursed city in all of sports. If they win a Stanley Cup, will Redskins fans, Nationals fans, and Wizards fans stop that narrative, or will it just be, well, that was just a cup?
I think it's a trickle. I think it would be a trickle-down effect of that sigh of relief, sort of the same way the first Cleveland area championship did that for LeBron James and the Cavs, sort of the way that I think this Eagles championship will do for that city. No disrespect to Villanova, but professionally for the sports teams around that city, I think you can see these teams draft off the success of one another. The Caps could be a great place to start because this wouldn't be something that's surprising. This has been expected of a team with Alexander Ovechkin on it. I think that's been the lion's share of that with all these teams. You've got great players in this city. It just hasn't translated to meaningful winning in the postseason.
Yeah, Ovi was 12 years old the last time the Caps played a Stanley Cup final game. So that gets you caught up on what's trending, and I will have a side eye on it. Great for the city of Vegas, to my original hometown, to have the opportunity to have this sort of already have this platform.
And this criticism all comes from a place of love for you. You're a big hockey fan. You did local radio. You're from Nashville, so the Predators run last year was huge for that city, and you were following that closely. You mentioned Vegas, your hometown. So all this comes from a place of love, of wanting to see people gravitate towards this, because story-wise, this is the hockey equivalent of the Chicago Cubs from 2016. 108-year curse being broken for that team that any casual sports fan could look at and see the importance of. And you've got a team in Vegas right now that can capture the casual fan because it's such an easy story for people to digest. You don't need to be deep in the weeds hockey guy.
Yeah, especially you've got a cursed city versus Sin City, with one of the 2 or 3 best players of this generation in hockey involved, and a Hall of Fame caliber goalie for Vegas. So there's a lot of pieces to this that would make for a spectacular story. One of the things that really bummed me out last year during the Stanley Cup final run in Nashville is that I don't think the NHL did a good enough job of really maximizing all of that and all that it could mean. And I see them making the same mistake yet again. So it's frustrating.
It's tough to have it side by side with the NBA. That's the league that does more than any other sports league in making sure that its stars are the priority and the commodity.
And the stars will be out tonight, 100%. You're listening to Golic and Wingo. Jason Fitz in for Trey, Jr. in for Mike. And this Game 7 tonight is everything we hoped we would get in this series. I've said it several times on radio. this sort of saves basketball for me. And I know that sounds melodramatic, but last summer we all bought into this free agency move was going to mean something. It was going to make the final four essentially more competitive. It was going to give other teams a reason to hope, and it gives everybody a reason to sit back and say, hey, we can still have competitive basketball even in an era of dynastic basketball from the Warriors. So getting to a Game 7 is massive. The only unfortunate thing is that without knowing what Chris Paul is going to be, unfortunately, we're only getting sort of a shell of what Game 7 would be. I think all the pressure, though, tonight is on Golden State. I will come in wholly and say that because you mentioned it earlier, if they lose this, what next? I mean, do you just chalk it up to a loss?
Yeah, it's interesting, and we're making Mike D'Antoni right retroactively, who said all the pressure was on them going into one of the earlier games in this series. So a few games later, we'll just put that Mike D'Antoni quote up and say he's absolutely right. All the pressure is on Golden State in this scenario because they've got the burden of expectation, because they're the team that's supposed to be here and was supposed to be here with much greater ease than we've seen displayed up until this point. So Houston has already gone out and drawn blood on a giant. What they do from here on out is their own, but yes, this validates a whole offseason shakeup. So for the NBA, this is exactly what you needed. You just needed a little bit of doubt. You needed that introduced into the ecosystem, because outside of that, your sport trends in the right direction in almost every other spot.
Yeah, and it's going to be an interesting piece because competitiveness and competitive balance has to be a sales pitch for any league, right? It doesn't matter whether it's the NFL or whether it's the NBA. At some point, everybody has to feel like there's some level of hope. And what I've said for years about the NBA that's particularly interesting is that I don't think casual fans of smaller teams or lesser teams really have any hope of championships. They watch because it's fun. They've made the personalities so engaging that it's like an action movie. You know things are going to blow up. You know what the plot line's going to be, and you know the good guys are going to win in the end. That's sort of what regular season basketball feels like if you're a fan of the Bucks, or you're looking at teams that aren't championship caliber teams. At least night in and night out on a marathon regular season, you can give everybody something entertaining, something to watch.
You can also give everyone hope now because there are a lot of stars littered around the NBA, and we've seen a lot of them come out through the course of this postseason. You saw Victor Oladipo kind of start to take that step. You saw, plenty of players, especially in the Western Conference series, start to look like, all right, this could be something going forward. We saw teams take a game or two from Houston, take a game from the Golden State Warriors. Anthony Davis looked stellar during this postseason run. And you start to say, all right, like the rest of the NBA, we can get a couple of these guys in one spot. We could be something. And based on the course of every NBA offseason that we've seen in the last few years, you understand how real a possibility that is, that guys are looking to join up because they understand that's how you win now in this league. So if you are a Milwaukee, if you are a New Orleans Pelicans team, if you are an Indiana, you're looking around and saying, man, if we can just package a couple of these guys together, we're watching right now the Golden State Warriors look a little more human. We saw a couple of those teams draw blood early on. Maybe there is some hope.
Is there some piece of that just that comes into having a realistic understanding of the trajectory and where you are at this current moment? Because I think you look at, for example, Utah, before they realized Donovan Mitchell was going to be a stud, they sort of felt like the franchise was here. Now you see Donovan Mitchell and you're like, hey, got a young point guard.
Well, yeah, you thought you were taking a step back. Right. You lost Gordon Hayward this offseason.
Right. And now you're looking at it saying we have a piece that, hey, if you're a star and you want to play with a great point guard, we got one. You got an opportunity to come here and play.
You've got something to sell.
Right. So I think having something to sell to get to whatever the next level is an amazing part of all of this. The interesting thing is when you get to the very top of it and you're Golden State and Houston, well, the only thing they have to sell is trying to beat each other, right? At some point, Golden State's big sales pitch, and people have been tweeting nonstop over the last month, what if LeBron goes to Golden State? I mean, ever goes to the Rockets. Everything about the Rockets is, can we beat Golden State? For Golden State, I don't know, they just are who they're going to be for the next several years.
Yeah, your selling point is we can win you a championship on most seasons. More often than not, we're going to get you in the dance or at the top of the dance because we've got so many great players packed into one. The question for them now, and it becomes interesting going into tonight, is this is a Golden State Warriors team that is stellar. On their best day, their best punch, I think their point differential in the third quarter is the best in league history in the postseason now. I think they finally went over that hump after that output in Game 6. This is a team that their best punch we know still is championship worthy, is over the top championship worthy. But now the question that they're going to have to ask themselves, I think regardless of the outcome, because being outcome driven is what we tend to do, but being process driven is what gets you to this point. They're going to have to look at and examine, all right, the way we did things this year opened us up in a way that we haven't been in a while. The way that we went about our business this year, being lackadaisical, turning the ball over even more than usual in our free-flowing style, and leaning too much on Kevin Durant in the critical moments of this series, they've got to figure out, all right, what is our identity going forward? Because we seem to have had a bit of a crisis with that this postseason.
You're listening to Golic and Wingo. We're presented by Progressive Insurance, with insurance for cars, home, boat, motorcycles, RVs, and commercial vehicles. All at 1-800-PROGRESSIVE and Progressive.com. I'm Jason Fitz in for Trey Jr. and for Mike. And that's an interesting piece of it, because we almost talk about going to Kevin Durant like it's some sort of a failing. He's one of the few, 3, 4, 5 best players in the league. You should be able to go to Durant. And this comes back to one of the pieces of Durant that's never really made sense, that we can't seem to wrap our head around. And again, I think people have a bias against or for Kevin Durant based on the move to Golden State, and they refuse to see through that. I'm not talking to that guy. Like, if you've already made your mind up on Kevin Durant.
Yeah, he's over there eating raisin-filled potato salad at the barbecue. Right. You leave him alone over in that corner.
He's grumpy, and that's fine. I don't care where Durant wants to go to make his money, and I just want to see every player be the best that he can be. Has Durant really been the best that he can be in these playoffs? At times, he's been dominant, and at times, it's just looked like Golden State's lost when they try and run the offense through him, which is an interesting piece to be in, because you have this all-star team with supposedly this fantastic coach. They should be better at that.
Well, they should be better at what they do. The reason Kevin Durant wanted to come play here is not so that he could go and show everyone that he's the man. He looked over and he said, that's a really fun, free-flowing, offensive style of basketball that shares the rock, that puts guys in their best position. And when this team was at their best with Kevin Durant last year, he was a part of that offense. Now, he was a gigantic cannon in this offense that was maybe had a musket in that spot before. But now all of a sudden you're kind of reworking who they are offensively, and that's not what Kevin Durant signed up for. We've seen him be capable of that. Now, he doesn't have the same gifted passing ability, so he's not as viable on that block as LeBron James would be in the same spot. But Kevin Durant is so gifted offensively. The third quarter numbers we talked about, Curry, Durant, Clay, and Draymond have shared the floor for 334 minutes in the third quarter this season. They're plus 229, outscoring their opponents by 31 points per 100 possessions. They've outscored its opponent by 15 points in the third quarter 17 different times this year. The only other team to do it 10 times was the Sixers. So this team, when they fire on all cylinders, when they play their brand of basketball, can do that. I don't think running it through Kevin Durant, A, proves anything, or B, is the best use of all that talent.
It's interesting when you break down the 4 names you just mentioned, Curry, Durant, Clay, and Draymond, because the fact is, as good as the Rockets are, and as much as we've been hyping the Rockets since last July with the CP3 edition, top to bottom, top 4 players versus top 4 players, Golden State's better. And it's easy to forget that. We're so used to watching Golden State.
Yeah.
And but there's sort of a moment of like, we're all rooting for some different result. So we forget the fact that at the end of the day, Golden State's flat out better than every other team in the NBA.
Big bank take little bank. Like, this is easy math on that equation. And it got summed up in Game 6. The difference between the Warriors and everyone else on planet Earth is that with the Rockets, we know this game's going to have to come down to James Harden and if he's playing Chris Paul. That is who we circle on the calendar. Klay Thompson won you Game 6. We've seen Klay Thompson, we've seen Draymond Green, we've seen all of these guys be the driving force behind wins, and then you've got 3 MVPs sitting over in the corner in Steph and Kevin Durant. No one else can match that. So on their best day, no one should beat this team.
Well, and Klay's already come out and said, hey, I'm willing to take less money to stay here because I just love being around here. I mean, this Golden State thing is going to stick around for as long as that's the stunning part of it. So for anybody that laughs, and we're not going to get into this, but for anybody that laughs about what if LeBron went to the Rockets, well, then it might almost be fair. I mean, but yeah. That's what it would take is that sort of a move for it to be fair at this point.
You've got Tom Brady syndrome out there. What has kept the Patriots whole for so long? This idea that the best quarterback in the sport doesn't really care about getting paid like the best quarterback in the sport. And if you've got a bunch of guys there, the only thing that breaks is if you see that ego start to creep into it the way it sort of has for the Patriots this offseason.
Credit to Steve Kerr. Somehow he manages to keep all of that in check. Tons of NBA talk, obviously, today as we have a Game 7 last night. We have a Game 7 tonight. But coming up, for all that the NBA is winning on, the NBA playoffs have shown us one place that the league is absolutely getting everything wrong. We'll tell you what that is next.
At Trex, we know there's a place for wood in your backyard. We recommend the fire pit. But when it comes down to choosing the right material for your next deck, look no further than the superior beauty and durability of the world's #1 premium decking brand. Trex delivers the look of wood without all of the work and the worry, and it's made from 95% recycled materials, which makes it the right choice for your backyard 100% of the time. To learn how to make Trex your next deck, visit Trex.com to order samples.
Here's a little insider travel secret. There are tons of empty hotel rooms out there just waiting to be booked. That's why there's Hotel Tonight. Hotel Tonight partners with awesome hotels to help them fill their unsold rooms, which means you get incredible deals. And even though the name's Hotel Tonight, you can actually book up to a week in advance and up to 100 days in advance in top destinations. So download the Hotel Tonight app to start scoring better deals at better hotels now.
It's Golic and Wingo. I'm Jason Fitz in for Trey Jr., in for Mike. We got a Game 7 last night. We get a Game 7 tonight. The Stanley Cup Final starts tonight.
It would have been really clever if you're showing up to your Memorial Day barbecue or cookout today and you go the Game 7 sandwich, because that's what we're in.
Oh, yeah. Look at that. Like, what if you called like 7-layer dip? Like, some sort of
Game 7-layer salad?
Yeah, I like how you put salad in there. Only you would call 7-layer dip something that involves salad.
7-layer salad.
Is it though?
Yeah,
is that a salad?
Where I come from.
Well,
we've got plenty more on that right now. The Memorial Day cookout radio is one of the hallmarks of the radio calendar year. And we've got the definitive list of the worst people that you're going to find at that's coming up in just a little bit. We've worked hard on this one. We've gone past the surface level, and we think we've really found those people that you dread the minute you see them walk in.
Oh, it's spectacular. Speaking of things I dread, we'll get to the list in a minute, but things I dread, the NBA awards. I dread the NBA awards, and I'll tell you why. Because I understand so many people will tell you that, well, the regular season is what that award is for, and you know, they have a finals MVP and they have a regular season MVP, and there's a reason they're different things. That's fine. But we all acknowledge at this point that the regular season is sort of a joke. You get a shell of the NBA teams during the regular season that you get during the playoffs. That's the way they're all playing now. So at some point, you have to judge the body of work in its entirety. And we are in a system now where, because they wait so long to put the MVP announcement out, because we're not going to find out who the MVP is until June, what we have now is a world where the MVP is likely to be James Harden. And that's fine. He had a great year. But after what we've seen in the playoffs, can we really say that it's not LeBron? And it's not just him. The Ben Simmons, Donovan Mitchell conversation was very close in the regular season. Nobody could decide who they liked better. Donovan Mitchell was spectacular in the playoffs for whatever his run was. He opened more eyes. The fact that Brad Stevens didn't get a single vote for Coach of the Year, like, if we don't factor in the playoffs, what's the point?
This is actually the perfect bridge for what we were talking about earlier, which was your declaration that mac and cheese is a main dish and not a side dish. Yes. And I said context changes this. Context changed this awards, because before, the NBA tried to do what the NFL and other leagues that had started to follow suit and do this postseason award show. They want to make it a red carpet event, get all their stars in one house, which you can understand to some level. But they've done that at the expense of now making the regular season awards a side dish instead of the main dish. Because before, if you were to announce the MVP right when the regular season is done, we would all look and say, James Harden, absolutely, while we've always got some LeBron James debate in there because of what he offers his teams, we could at least look at James Harden's regular season and go, oh yeah, like that guy absolutely has been deserving of and now deserves this MVP this season. But when you change that and you put that award to after we get the playoff body of work and after we get the finals MVP, all of a sudden you've taken those and you've relegated them to side dish status unnecessarily.
That's an interesting point, because what the NFL has done a masterful job of doing is extending their calendar over 12 months. So they've really paid attention to how to space things out. And I think that part of the initiative for the NBA has been about that. How can we extend our great moments? I don't have a problem with extending the great moments, but if you're going to do that, then you can't give an award in June and ask people to forget everything about the basketball they've been watching for the last 2.5 months. The problem is the NBA playoff season is so dang long. And then the regular season is already a marathon. And then the playoffs are so long that the regular season feels forgotten to most people. And so to come in now and give out an award, to come in now and give, because in my imaginary scenario earlier that has LeBron somehow, some way going on and winning a championship, if he wins a championship and then we have to turn up and hoist up James Harden as the MVP, it's going to make the league look dumb.
Oh, it completely neuters the award. It's unfair to James Harden, who, based on the parameters of the award as it's currently given out, did more than enough to be deserving of this. But in that moment, you're right, it would look sort of laughable given the rest of the context. And I don't know, for me, it's tough because I understand people wanting to protect the history of the award. You want people to be able to refer back to the way this award has always been. But at the same time, the NBA does as good a job as any league going of listening to its fans and understanding what they prioritize. And NBA fans prioritize postseason basketball above everything else. They've followed suit from the players, but when we measure the success and the quality of the teams and players, we measure it in this time of year.
I love this example. Last year, Russell Westbrook played his last game April 25th. He received the MVP June 26th. That's longer than the time between the All-Star game and the end of the regular season.
Wow.
That's how long it took. Love that. You're listening to Golic and Wingo. I'm Jason Fitz in for Trey Jr. and for Mike. Golic and Wingo reminding you to tune in to a Memorial Day doubleheader as the Yankees host the Astros, followed by Giants at Rockies, presented by Exxon and Mobil and Vivid Seats. Coverage begins today at 12:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio, ESPNradio.com, and the ESPN app. It's an interesting point that the NBA does a great job of listening to their fans, and we saw that this year. We saw that with the All-Star practice. We all laughed about the fact that they were going to have their own draft, and the players were going to get to be able, like dodgeball, we're going to be able to select people. And then everybody, sort of myself included, yelled about, how do you not televise that? Well, what do you know? Now they're coming in and saying, maybe we should televise it next year. They do a good job of listening to it. I don't know that you can make awards relevant enough to make fans care that much. That's going to be it's going to take something like an MVP winning it after an MVP obvious playoff and final run that changes it. That's the only way people will be up in arms.
Well, change it back. The MVP is always something that's tremendously valuable in NBA circles. It's one of the measurements that we have for these all-time greats. It's one of those markers when we start to ramp up our expectations for you. But to me, it's just as simple as, all right, we got to do something about this award show. Maybe you give out the award there. Maybe you celebrate it there and you leave some of the other awards. I understand that's the big draw. It would be like not announcing Best Picture at the end of the Oscars. But at the same time, you're just doing a disservice to whoever wins it, because unfortunately you can be forgotten in the sands of time. Now, I say that in one end, and then the other end, we all remember Dirk Nowitzki was the MVP in the 2006-2007 season. What we also remember is that he wasn't given the award until 2 weeks after they lost to the We Believe Warriors in the first round. So this is I guess it almost works against it, because I would have to work to remember that portion of it, but I'll remember that Dirk was the MVP, so time will get you closer to that feeling. But in the moment when you want it celebrated for the accomplishment that it is for that particular player, that's probably where it seems the most unfair.
And I understand the need for a divide and the need for recognition on finals MVP. I understand why that's become such a big thing, but that is one piece of it. That's not taking the whole season together.
And Andre Iguodala was the finals MVP of that first Warriors championship.
Right. So you have to look at it at some point and say, how do we find a way to reward somebody for the entirety of what they accomplished during a season? I don't know what the answer to that is, other than doing it after and allowing that award to be there. It will continue to devalue the regular season, but that's something that the NBA seems to be perfectly content allowing to happen, as long as we all get sucked into these amazing playoffs.
To give batters a different look, pitchers throw a changeup.
Your idea of a different look is sunglasses.
That's true. But La Quinta Inns and Suites is really taking the different look thing to a new level.
Definitely a major league makeover, starting with a bolder, brighter lobby full of comfortable spaces to let you settle in.
Or chill out in front of a big flat screen like Wingo would.
Oh, you know it. It's a changing La Quinta look to help you get in the zone and look sharp when you hit that big meeting.
Prepare to win at business with La Quinta Inns and Suites.
Book now at LQ.com.
His 11th 500 will be the best one.
I can't believe I'm known as the Indy 500 champion.
For the final time out of turn 4, it's Will Power.
It was surreal coming to the yard of bricks, the checkered flag.
Will Power's going to win the 102nd running of the Indianapolis 500-mile race.
It was an unbelievable feeling for me. Best in my life.
Sports Center is brought to you by Pennzoil. Right now, summer sports are in full swing. Baseball's firing on all cylinders. And there's a certain soccer tournament that the world's watching. Something you should be watching is your vehicle's engine. That's why Pennzoil Synthetic gives you complete protection for top engine performance. Pennzoil, make the switch.
It's Golic and Wingo. I'm not proud of the dancing. I was just doing it all.
I'm glad I couldn't see it.
Jason Fitz in for Trey, Jr. in for Mike. And this is it was a fun, exciting. It's a big weekend for everybody. Everybody's partying, but I don't think anybody is partying more than our next guest. At least I hope so, because he deserves to. We've got the Indy 500 winner, Will Power, joining us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Will, we just heard it referenced. Congratulations yesterday. They mentioned in the clip it's your first Indy win on your 11th try. Does it make it mean more when you've had the opportunity and then you finally get this success?
Yeah, it does, actually. It definitely feels better when you've tried so hard, worked so hard at something, and, eventually you get it. So, yeah, just a unbelievable feeling. And didn't sleep at all last night. I just couldn't sleep. I'm just, yeah, so much adrenaline.
Yeah, I'm sure it's adrenaline coursing through your veins. Congratulations on this. Yeah. And what was the difference this time around? You're a veteran of this. You've won, so many poles, so many race wins, but finally getting over the hump here. What was the difference yesterday?
It was just, great preparation and honestly, a good car, not a single mistake in pit stops, great in and out laps. I mean, it's just everything. A fast car, and I drove the wheels of it, and that's what wins races. So it just put it all together, all those combinations that wins races.
We're talking Indy 500 winner Will Power on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Was there a moment in the race where you started to realize, holy cow, I think we got this?
Yeah, I think it was when we after the last pit stop. And I was like, I'm in a good position here, but I knew that we were going to catch traffic and it might be another yellow. But after, really with 4 to go, when the two guys in front of me who were, didn't have enough fuel pulled in, then I was like, we got a pretty good chance of winning this.
I'm interested in this, not only with that, but just dealing with all the caution flags that we saw yesterday, a number of wrecks, and getting down to the end of the race. How nerve-wracking does that become as you start to kind of do the math in your head and see your position when you see all of those yellow flags coming out?
Yeah, that's surviving those restarts and not getting past and not getting shuffled back was the key to the win. Like, really good restarts all day. Really didn't lose the position all day. So, yeah, at the end, that is the difference. You must have good restarts.
Well, we've managed to show tremendous restraint in not starting with the milk question. So now we'll get to it, because we've been trying to figure out all morning, like, is the milk particularly ice cold? Is it sort of lukewarm? Like, how did the milk live up to the expectation?
Everyone wants to know what temperature the milk was. I think it was it was kind of just a little bit cool and tasted sweeter than ever.
Now, I understand your diet, though. You were hesitant to drink it because milk isn't a part of your diet. Is that, a dietary restriction? Is that a choice? What are we working with here?
It's actually a restriction. It's just an allergy I had, but I didn't hesitate. I drank it. You don't get many shots of drinking the milk.
We're talking to Will Power, winner of the 2018 Indianapolis 500. Will, at what point does this really sit in and you can sit back and appreciate the accomplishment?
I don't know. It hasn't sunk in. It's kind of hard to. Yeah, it just hasn't sunk in. I think I'll sit at the end of the year when I'm done with my season and kind of reflect on what a fantastic thing to have happened to accomplish. So, and hopefully that's with a championship as well.
Well, we appreciate you joining us. Congratulations on the win, Will. Congratulations on the milk drinking. It's spectacular, but congratulations on finally getting the Indy win.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Will Power, Indianapolis 500 winner on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line.
I respect a guy that sounds like he's been up all night.
Yeah.
Respect the hell out of that. admitted it, was open about it, and very clearly sounds like he enjoyed the win, which you should.
You should.
And for the long time coming, we mentioned the first win in 11 tries at this for a guy that accomplished a lot of else as a veteran in this sports to get it there in that setting, the greatest spectacle in all of racing. It was truly a remarkable day for him, and probably the best glass. That's the one place that has really made milk chugging cool, right?
I'm a little weirded out, though. He said it was like kind of cool. And you think about how hot he is getting out of it, like anything's going to be kind of cool. So that's not refrigerated milk.
You know what? But like a glass of warm milk can calm you down, put you to sleep at night. So I don't think you rule that out too soon.
No, I'm out on milk in general. But particularly lukewarm milk. Oh my God.
All right, hold on. This is going to get interesting here. Golic and Wingo and Brett, our researcher, just chimes in my ear and says, I've got a milk take. So this ought to be something.
All right. So you guys asked him about the dietary restriction, and we saw the video on the TV of him drinking the milk. He's like, oh yeah, I drank it. I didn't hesitate. But if you watch it, it was kind of like if somebody in real life or a movie like is trying to be cool and smoke a cigarette and they don't smoke and they just like take a puff and just puff it out. That was what he did with the milk. He took a little sip and then just dumped the whole thing on his head. I think he was trying to play us there. I don't know if he actually drank
wow, he did. I didn't even see that.
Look, and it looks like he's sort of holding it in his mouth. No, but I have no problem with that. Like, it's no different than the champagne, right? You win in baseball, they immediately pour the champagne. They're wasting good alcohol.
You know what this is? This is the guy that's at the, you'll see this guy at the barbecue. We've got the definitive list of bad people that you see coming up at the barbecue. This is the guy that tries to shotgun a beer with the group that's in the back that clearly has no business doing it and tries to just throw the can in defiance like he finished it and spills 90% of a beer out on the lawn.
You are speaking from personal experience on that.
I have watched this happen many a times and been that guy once or twice early on in the shotgunning career.
Look, there's not much that I won't go up against, but if I see you and your friends knowing their size shotgunning beers, I'm out. I mean, I'm just out. I don't even try.
Yeah, no, we got some winners in our circle. Yeah, although you put all of them up against Tom Brady, and from the things I've heard, the folklore surrounding him, you add beer chugging as one of them, and you've instantly got a guy I have no problem calling the GOAT.
Golic and Wingo, presented by Progressive Insurance. Jason Fitz in for Trey, Jr. in for Mike, it's been an interesting morning for sure. Coming up, was yesterday the greatest performance of LeBron's career? Ty Lue thinks so. We'll answer that question next. Golic and Wingo, ESPN Radio.
Next, you're holding up the line, ma'am.
What did you say?
You're next in line for the water slide, ma'am. Feet forward and enjoy the ride.
Okay, dearie. This does look fun. Whee! You melted me. I've melted.
The Wicked Witch of the West on a water slide? Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
See what you've done. Oh!
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15%.